it later as well. All right, so I'd like to welcome everyone to the second training for using the outdoors as a classroom. Today we're going to be talking about taking learning outside. Alana is going to be putting an attendance sheet in, or a Google form for attendance, in the chat box throughout the meeting today. And this is to receive a certificate of attendance, so we'll get that emailed out to you. If you were here last week and you didn't receive it, that's because I went on vacation right after the training, so I will get that out to you this week, so you'll have both. So great. I'm so glad you were here joining us today, and I hope you are, well, happy to be here as well. If you don't know me, my name is Mary Westland, and I'm the program coordinator here at MAEOE, the Maryland Association for Environmental and Outdoor Education, if you are not familiar with our acronym. I also have Alana Kellner joining me in this training as well, and she's going to be helping with monitoring the chats, putting some links in, and any tech issues that arise during our training today. All right, so let's get started. Hopefully, there we go. So I am going to ask you to be interactive. You can have your cameras off or on today. That is up to you. But I do want to know that you're out there and participating in the training as much as you can. We are going to use the chat box just for some basic, responses and things like that. You will be doing some drawing today. So if you have paper, pen, or pencil, anything, crayon, whatever, colored pencils, whatever you want to use, markers, we will be doing some drawing today. If you, we'll also be doing some open group discussion, so I'll be calling on you based on your comments in the chat and in the Padlet that we will be using as well. Last week, we attempted to use these Zoom reactions. Some of you have them, some of you don't, because apparently if you don't have the updated version of Zoom, you might not have that. So your ready signals for me will be, you can use a thumbs up, which is available next to your participant, next to your name. You can use the chat box by giving me a smiley face. If you want to just wave and give me a thumbs up in the screen, that's good as well. We're also going to be using a Padlet, so we'll put that in the chat box. Last week we tried to use a Google Jamboard and we maxed out, so we're going to try to use Padlet this week. And then Zoom poll. Last week we used Slido, but this week we're going to use Zoom poll because I have Alana here helping me to reload those. So if you are ready to go, give me a thumbs up. Give me your ready signal. Let me know that you are ready to go. Okay, and Denise, you're having trouble signing in. Okay, but you're in the chat box, so you must be in, right? So Alana can help you offline too, if that's okay. You're ready to go. Thanks. And then we'll go from there. All right. And Alana will be monitoring that chat, and we will be stopping to discuss in between, and then we'll go from there. Okay. All right, so our agenda and our goals. This week we're going to talk about moving lessons outdoors while still meeting your goals and objectives and also the standards. Well, we're going to ask you to rethink your lessons within your curriculum. And give you some, we're also going to give you some practice in transferring a lesson outside with a geography mapping activity. So that is going to be part of that drawing activity. I'm hoping that Laura Menyak will be able to join us. I know she has a very busy schedule, so if she is not able to join us at the time that I have her in this training, we will skip ahead. Laura, if you are here, if you want to let me know, that'd be great. We have two Lauras here, and one's Laura R, so I'm not sure if Laura, if you are here, let me know for sure. But if Laura is not able to join us today, we will skip ahead and then we'll have her join a different presentation during a different day, but we'll definitely get her thoughts in. She was going to talk to us about her experiences in taking lessons outdoors. So this is part of a 5-part series, and we're going to build upon each lesson, each training, and we're gonna do that from week to week. So if something isn't covered this week, we'll hopefully cover it in the next week. And I looked at a lot of the comments and chats in the Google Jamboard that was last week that you filled out if you were here, and added some of those concepts into this training today. And Denise, it looks like you're not able to get into the attendance sheet. It said that there was an error. If you want to, if you want to try again, or message Alana, and she can enter you from the back end so that we get your information. Okay. All right. And all the trainings are recorded, and they are available on the MAEOE website in the professional development tab. So I'm going to go ahead and add that link to the chat box. And hopefully you can access that there if you need any of the trainings and any of the recordings. All right. So let's get started here. Our first poll is, do you think it is possible to meet the standards if you take learning outside? So Alana, if you want to go ahead and launch that poll, that would be great. Let's see. Can you all see the poll or no?
So far, we have 22 of 29 in.
Okay, great. I'm not able to see it, so I was panicking.
Yeah. All right, 26 of 29. If you just joined, feel free to fill out the poll real quick. It seems like we have some new people who just got on.
Great.
All right, it seems like most people have finished taking the poll.
So let's take a look at the results.
I'm going to end polling.
And are you able to share the results with us?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that.
That would be awesome. Thanks.
Are you seeing them?
I am not, so I'm going to actually ask you to read them. And that's fine.
No problem. Sorry, I clicked share.
Yeah, for some reason I'm not.
Awesome. So it seems like 90% of people can feel confident that they can meet the standards and they take learning outside, and 10% are not sure, but no one doesn't think that they can meet the standards. So that's really exciting.
Okay, well, that's good. So 90% of you, I'm going to ask you to help the 10% who aren't quite sure if they can meet those standards. And hopefully the 10% of you who aren't quite sure, you'll get some tricks and tips today, and just some ideas. And if you have questions, please ask. This is a safe environment. I want you to know that you can ask questions. And if you have questions after, please make sure that you email us and we can get those responses and answers or resources that you might need. Okay. So thanks for taking that poll. We're going to take it at the end and see if anything moves, because maybe some of the 90% might move to the not sure or I don't think. So we're going to see how that bar moves. Okay. Great. Okay. So I'm going to continue here, and for some reason that is a blank. Oh, I know why it's a blank, because hopefully you're going to be able to hear this. I'm going to stop share and just make sure that we can see this. Last week, we talked about best practices and things that you can do, logistics. I'm going to show you a quick video from Edutopia that gives you an overview, basically, of what we talked about last week, but you can also view the video. But I did, if any of you weren't here last week, I wanted to share this video with you. It's about a 4-minute video. So I'm going to go ahead and share that now for you to set your mind into this just basically into the mind of getting ready to go outside. And hopefully you can hear this if I play it. Let me know if you can't, Alana.
Organic materials. You can look on the ground, in the beds.
Getting students outdoors has many benefits. It increases academic engagement and excitement about learning, as well as physical activity. It can be daunting to figure out how to move classes outside, but getting kids outdoors isn't an all.
I think you didn't share the sound correctly because we can't actually hear anything other than like mumbles.
Okay, you can't hear it?
No.
Okay.
I'm able to hear it. Maybe turn the volume up.
Yeah. I think it's actually my computer. Alana, can you try, are you able to share your screen?
Yeah, let me go into the video.
Yeah, I apologize, everyone. I'm using a different computer because my work computer crashed today. So I'm using a completely different computer today. It might not be working correctly for that.
All right, let me double check that I've shared. I don't know if I shared sound. Give me 1 second.
Okay, and if you want to turn on closed captions too, if you're able to do that in the video.
Got it. Let me see.
Look for those organic materials. You can look on the ground, in the beds.
Getting students outdoors has many benefits. It increases academic engagement and excitement about learning, as well as physical activity. It can be daunting to figure out how to move classes outside, but getting kids outdoors isn't an all or nothing proposition. Even taking students outdoors for 30 minutes is beneficial. All you need is an open space.
Okay, so get the calculators out, figure out your pace.
Consider making outdoor sessions frequent, even if brief. Also, consider the age of students learning outdoors. Younger students may be engaged outdoors for 30 to 45 minutes, while older students may be comfortable for up to 2 hours at a time.
Let's find a spot and let's sit down and start working on our physical survey of the area, everybody.
Schools can use multiple outdoor spaces across a campus of any size for outdoor learning. Administrators can map out their campus by going to Google Earth, printing out a map, walking around, and identifying grassy areas, courtyards, and even parking lots or basketball courts. When creating a rotation schedule, think about whether children should be sent outside by grade, by subject, or by classroom location. How does this coordinate with other outdoor time, like PE? The rotation may be similar to the recess, library, or special schedules. Schools don't need special supplies to go outdoors. Those basic things could be a sharpened pencil and a notebook. You can add 5-gallon buckets, whiteboards, clipboards, hand sanitizer, and first aid kits.
What? That's not.
So like right there.
There's a tackle that's moving around.
The best outdoor lessons use the outdoors as a resource to really bring content to life, like science. But any subject can happen outdoors. An art teacher can teach drawing from direct observation. In ELA, teachers can find a place for writing or work on a standard about descriptive language.
All right, let's get a third one in here. Grab a stick there, buddy.
Volunteers can help with managing students, cleaning up, fundraising, or getting supplies like buckets or tree stumps donated from local businesses.
Everyone's done. Give me a thumbs up if you're done. Okay.
Okay, go put your boots on. Get your boots.
School leaders should let parents know that students will be spending time outdoors and to dress appropriately. Schools can also organize a donation drive to get coats and gear for students to make sure all students can participate in outdoor learning.
Put it in the person's palm next to them, like this, all right?
Getting outdoors is good for everybody and does not require a lot of space, supplies, or time, but just a bit of planning. The experience teachers create through these outdoor lessons are so memorable to the students.
Yes.
Any questions?
No.
All right, make it so. Do it up.
Do this.
Thank you, Alana, for sharing that.
No
So that
problem at all.
hopefully gets you into the mindset of taking learning outside. Any comments, questions before I introduce our guest speaker? Any thoughts you've had in the past week if you were here last week with us?
Sometimes as teachers, we put up barriers and think that we can't do it, but just in this video alone, it showed me that it can be done. It's not expensive. You can seek out additional resources that if you need them. And it's just something that I've always been wanting to do, just taking the initiative to do it. That's pretty much what I really, really want to get out of this. And just finding an area where I can actually do it, particularly with, some of the class sizes I had in the past, how I'm going to navigate, monitoring all these kids. Those are just some of the things that I really want to figure out how I can do it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I hope that over the next couple of weeks, you start to get some of those ideas on how you can do it, because those class sizes are definitely one of those barriers that we talked about last week. And, hopefully we can collaborate on those ideas over the next couple of weeks. Any other thoughts?
Just to speak to class sizes, and they even said it in the video, is I utilize when I have bigger classes, parents to come in and volunteer. They like to go on field trips, and a walking field trip or just out on the grounds is kind of nice too. So if you have a parent body that's active, or have a couple of parents that would be helpful, that's a nice way to kind of have another body wrangle kids if you need it.
Something I've done in the past is do a few just test sessions, and I let the students know we're going to go out, we're just going to sit down in a certain area, like on the blanket or around the pond or whatever. We're going to do that. If everyone does that successfully, then we'll do it again another day. But that's our goal today. It's just, that's all I'm asking for. And so, like those people who run out the door, maybe we're going to have to skip tomorrow. So they start really seeing all she's asking us is to walk out there, sit down, and it's not a big deal. And it gave them a chance to learn to control their excitement. Because, I'm in elementary school. Every time students hit the playground, they come outside screaming. They I'm outside. So it's the same thing. I'm going outside for science. And I'm so excited I'm going to fall in the pond.
And that's definitely one of those things that we talked about last week, was building that stamina. And maybe the first few times you go outside, it's just what you just said, Karen, is to test it, practice it, get it as a routine and as a habit. So definitely, thanks for bringing that up. And I see Laura is here. Hi, Laura, you're in my screen now. I would like to introduce our guest speaker, Laura Menyak, and hopefully I'm saying that name correctly. She is with Great Kids Farms, and she is the farm to school programming specialist. So I'm going to let you, Laura, introduce yourself and talk about your learnings, your knowledge. You're an expert here for us to listen to, and I know you'll have time for Q&A at the end. So I'm just going to give you the stage now. Go ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. Really honored to be here to present and really start a conversation with all these amazing educators who are already maybe going outside or excited to go outside. I started my education career journey teaching literacy and very quickly transitioned to outdoor education when I discovered it. But I was not an outdoor person before that. And what really, I had one experience where my first job out of college, I worked for like an after school tutoring program. And that site, which was in DC, happened to have an outdoor education center in West Virginia. And so I said, hey, take me. I just want to go check out what you guys do out there. And they did before I transitioned to my next job at a school in DC. And I was like, how do I go do that? Because I didn't grow up doing any of these things. I grew up in Silver Spring in the suburbs. I was an indoor child. I danced ballet. That was my hobby. I did not canoe. I did not hike. I did not do any of those things. And my first year teaching at a charter school in DC, I ran the environmental club. The person who was supposed to co-run it with me quit at the beginning of the school year. He had done all the trainings, gone to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and learned how to build a rain garden. I was just going to be along for the ride, and all of a sudden I was in charge. So I Googled and I was like, okay, fun environmental activities, children. And found an activity called Meet a Tree, which if you have not done it before, I won't describe it, but you should Google it. It's like probably the most famous environmental awareness activity. And I took the 4 kids in our environmental club down to Lafayette Park behind the White House, because our school was a charter school at 16th and L, which if you know DC is 4 blocks north of the White House. And there was no playground. There was no outdoor space. You couldn't kick a ball off the terrace roof because you would hit like a K Street lobbyist below. So we walked down to Lafayette Park and we put on blindfolds and we did Meet a Tree. And these like wild children in my literacy classes were so into it and became so zen and loved their trees and named their trees. And I was like, this is it. I'm gonna do this. How do I go do this? So it's been a long journey of training outdoor education, and what I do in my day-to-day is different than what you do, because I do almost all of the education I do outdoors in a space that is specifically designed to be an outdoor education space all the time. Whereas you might be taking students into a space that is otherwise a playground or otherwise a field or otherwise whatever else it maybe more typically is in their minds. And part of what you'll be doing, it was just discussed, right, is transforming what they think of that space as being, which is maybe their recess space, into some sort of a more focused learning classroom space. And I hope in the next few minutes I can give some tips and inspiration from programming we've been doing at Great Kids Farm, training many Baltimore City school students in using their outdoor classroom spaces, which can be a particular challenge in that urban environment, as I described in my initial stories, finding that space you can use somewhere. And then we'll have time for questions. So I'm gonna dive in. And I'm gonna, do I have share screen permission? May I get share screen permission, please?
Yes, you should.
And I'm gonna be jumping around a little bit in a presentation that's like a 2-hour presentation we created for Baltimore City Schools teachers to just a couple of slides. So I hope you'll excuse my jumping around. I didn't create my own presentation, and I'm happy to announce my excuse is that I got married last weekend.
That's
So
awesome.
I didn't recreate a new PowerPoint.
Laura, I'm trying to get you.
I'm on it. I got it.
Oh, you are? You got it.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Awesome.
So I'm gonna go into present mode. And if I don't have my double screen set up, so Mary, or if somebody could, thank you, monitor the chat for me if questions come in, that would be really helpful.
Will do.
So what we did in Baltimore City is we collected a bunch of tips from teachers who do regularly take their students outside. And one of the #1 tips we wanted to pass on that I hope is useful to each of you is start small. And I think one example of that is the one that the wonderful teacher just shared, Karen Mendez, I believe it was, about, yeah, just take them out to do like a test run for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and then come back in. You know, do one activity outside. Another related tip, which I won't play this video, was you can start getting your students acclimated if you don't regularly take them outside by bringing some nature inside and starting to learn those classroom management structures that you will teach them outside of maybe how we treat things or how we do things in small groups, by bringing some things inside and then practicing those similar skills outside after you've started indoors, or because it's a rainy day and not everyone has rain gear, or it's too hot or it's too cold. Just thinking about ways you might be able to bring nature into your classroom is fun and make things easier to start with. I'm gonna skip ahead here and to when to go outside. There it is. So we have what I think of as 4 different ways of using your outdoor space. And one is to just take whatever lesson you would be normally teaching indoors outside. And we'll look at a few ideas for like physical tool setups that other teachers have used to bring their students out. Another is to use it as a backdrop for independent reading or writing time. If you are an elementary school or middle school student, you know, in high school, having an art class or a English class or etc., where you can have that independent writing and thinking time in an outdoor space can be very inspirational if time allows. A third way we think of using it is focusing on lessons that are purposefully incorporating social and emotional learning. And this could also mean using the outdoors as an incentive, as a break, as a time to play a game and come back in, as opposed to maybe doing a typical ELA science social studies lesson at, or whatever subject you may teach. And the final one is what we maybe are thinking of when we think of learning outside, which is a lesson that is structured around using your natural landscape as part of the lesson, right? So doing some sort of science project using the sun or the clouds or the water and the rain and the ground, or making an observation or finding something or measuring something in math, or you know, a social studies lesson on mapping and creating your own maps. That sort of thing where the outside space is part of the lesson in a really explicit way. But just to say that it doesn't have to be in order to have a really wonderful outdoor class experience. In terms of the tools you might bring out, it would be great for everyone to take a moment and consider what would make outdoor learning easier for you in your space, especially if you don't have like an official quote unquote outdoor classroom. What do you need to make it great for you? So examples we have here: portable seating. I believe in the previous video, buckets were mentioned. We'll give a couple other examples in a moment. Clipboards, I would say, are key. Clipboards are key because the one thing you're not taking outside with you is the desk, right? Maybe some sort of cart or one of those like rolling carts. You may even have them in your classroom already that you can carry some stuff out. The buckets are also great because once you have the bucket, the students can put their clipboard and put their other tools in their bucket, carry it out, and then it becomes their seat once they're out there. Any materials you would need printed, which now we use smart boards a lot all the time. That was like, I basically left the classroom when smart boards like came into the school. So that's like my one place that I could still get better at. But we usually don't take those outside. So just thinking about what you do need to print in advance, since you won't have that board up in front of you. And something that maybe we don't think about as much if we aren't a PE teacher or don't already typically bring our students outside is if you have a big space, especially, how are you marking and helping create a boundary for where students need to be? In your classroom, you might use desks as the spots, you might use carpet squares, you might use other spots. So it's really helpful to have something like that outside, whether it's those, those polyvinyl spots, cones, anything to mark a boundary. And on this link here, I will share this site with you. This was created for Baltimore City Schools. And let me get back into the chat. This was created for Baltimore City Schools, but it's a public site that anyone is welcome to go to. Okay, I'll share it in a bit when I can reopen the chat. Sorry about that. And I really welcome y'all to take a look at these additional ideas, and the videos that I'm not showing you now are in there as well if you want to hear from, on the right, a pre-K teacher and what she does, on the left, a resource teacher who manages a garden at a school for kindergarten through 8th grade. And the last thing I wanted to formally present, I believe the next slide, we're not gonna actually play this video, but I'm just gonna show you her little kits here. So this is an example of one she attached with pipe cleaner, the little, crayon and pencil basket. This is for pre-K, and the little notebook she has there. You can see attached here to the clipboard, my first write and draw journal. So something easy, really hard surfaces to be able to easily write on for the students. And here we go. In our next slide, we have here an example of the bucket seating, but also, it's a little hard to see in the video, but this is linked on our website, and it's actually a little a little seat with a pouch, so the students can like carry it over their shoulder, and it's filled with polyfill. They're very inexpensive. If you have older students, they could potentially make it themselves or decorate it themselves. And anything that helps protect students from the ground if you don't have seating, so it's not wet. Students who don't typically feel comfortable sitting outside on the grass or maybe have allergies, having that barrier from the grass can be really key and important. Something else we don't have listed on here is they have like woven plastic mats that look like straw mats, but they're woven out of plastic, and you can fit a lot of students on them. You can lay down on the grass in them. Really inexpensive. You can hose them down, you can wash them and sanitize them easily. So that's another thing I recommend and love to use. Finally, there's going to be a future session on outdoor classroom management, but in terms of how we structure our lessons, I did want to name these 5 things as a frame, that just as you have structures in your indoor classroom space, all you're doing when you're going outside is translating those structures to that new space, to those new materials, to the new timing, especially getting outside and back in, and maybe washing hands and bathrooms and those extra things needed, to some new stimuli. In the classroom, you might have interruptions from, announcements and bells in your schools, you might have an alarm, something like that happens. Other students being loud in the hallway. Outside, you have maybe birds, maybe sirens, maybe street noises. So just like your students probably know how to react when they get interrupted from the loudspeaker in the classroom, what are you teaching them in terms of how we all might react from these other new stimuli? Bees and things we can talk about if people are interested, or maybe that goes later in classroom management. And finally, you have some new preconceived notions. They know what to expect when they come in your classroom because you teach them in those first 6 weeks of school, or however you might structure it. And what preconceived notions do they have about outdoor space that you're relearning or unlearning or reshaping when you go outside? And how are you kind of building that into the structure, all of these 5 things into the structure of your lessons? So with that, I'm going to stop my share. I'm going to drop that link I mentioned in the chat. Where do I get the mats I just mentioned? That's a great question. I don't have a top recommendation. I'm sorry that I didn't come prepared with that. So I would say that's one to Google or look, see what you can find on Amazon. I would love to know if anyone has any questions about the presentation. Otherwise, I'll start with some questions for you to throw in the chat. You can throw questions in the chat or comments, or just unmute and share.
I have a quick question. So my school is heavily technology based. So I work with high school. So I'm imagining taking out their Chromebooks. Have you come across some kind of like management system, like it could, spontaneously start raining or something? Like, are there like covers, or would you think like students should like have a small bag? Just trying to visualize that they would be in my school typing all of their thoughts and such.
Yeah, thanks. So we have iPads we use at the farm, and we have weatherproof covers for them that we ordered. And that's not a minor expense. So that might be something you might get a grant for or make a request for, fundraise for. But absolutely worthwhile if you're going to be out there often enough. That way, even a light sprinkle doesn't do anything. And because they're like super sturdy. So if a kid drops one, like on the sidewalk, the iPad will survive. And then I recommend sling bags. Really inexpensive, easy, and that can be your kids' like go outside pack, right? Where the pre-K, they might store them separately and have their own little clipboard stored in a cubby somewhere. For older students who can really carry their own sling bags, or like what you're describing, and they could put their Chromebook in it, but they might also permanently keep some things in it, like a clipboard and so forth, that they only use when they go outside. So it stays in that pack and it stays at school.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you. Got me thinking. Thank you.
And where do people go in Baltimore? State parks. So of course, if you want to go anywhere in Baltimore, just like in any city, bus funding is one of the hardest things to get a hold of, whether from your school or elsewhere. It's hard to get grants for bus funding. If you are in Baltimore, the Visit Baltimore program sometimes has grants for your school to do science-based field trips. I don't know how much funding they're going to have this upcoming year, which is a bummer, but it's still worth looking into. And I see some great park recommendations there. If you're on the east side of Baltimore, Bliss Meadows is one to throw on that list. They would love to have your school visit. And if you're looking specifically for a farm-based experience, this is a little bit me touting Baltimore, and then I know not everyone's from Baltimore, so I won't spend too much time on it, but and look, everyone should just look up Bliss Meadows and like go there no matter where you're from, because it's amazing. But we serve as a hub for connecting folks to any of the urban gardens and farms in your area that you might like to visit or spend time with. So get in touch with me and I will help make that happen, as well as potentially a visit to Great Kids Farm. And yeah, thanks. Any other questions? What is in the ag kit? Is that something you saw on the website? Okay, so another thing that can be useful, indoors or outdoors, when we talked about bringing nature inside, one way to do that is through kits, which you can look up and buy online. If you're a Baltimore City school teacher, we have activity kits and we have several versions of them. So I can share a link to some information about that. And those are ways to, for example, grow plants in your classroom. If you have a window, you don't need a grow light. We set up these kits for $20 or so. There's actually through the Maryland Agricultural Education Foundation, or through MAEOE even. We did a presentation in January, so maybe Mary can find where that is and drop the link to we did a whole presentation on ag kits. So folks are interested in more ways to bring that outdoors indoors and connect it to cross-cutting concepts and connect it to literacy. We have a whole extra presentation on that. And Great Kids Farm does not work with Baltimore County because we are part of Baltimore City Schools. So we are the outdoor program of Baltimore City Schools.
I will find that link and put it in the resource folder with this recording.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, Baltimore County, Oregon Ridge, the MARC Center, the Maryland Agricultural Resource Center are great spots that I recommend. So. Any other questions? Mary, is there anything you wanted me to cover that we maybe missed or glossed over?
No, that was great. It's always great to have somebody who's doing this out in the field talk. So thank you for all of that.
And I'll drop my contact information here in the chat. And if anyone just like wants another recommendation, Baltimore City or not, please feel free to be in touch with me. I would be happy to chat.
Thank you so much for joining us, Laura. And please, you're welcome to stay on for the rest and answer questions throughout with me as well. So I do want to thank you for that, for being a guest speaker.
Thank you so much for having me. I am going to jump off. We're like post-wedding house organizing.
Yes, no, that is awesome. Congratulations.
I really wanted to be here today. So thank you for having me. And good luck, everyone. I have been so jazzed. I know it's like really nerdy, but I've been so jazzed by all of the teachers who are now excited or even more excited to take their students outside because, so, I don't even want to say there's silver lining of COVID, but the fact that we know that the outdoors is a safer space, I think has inspired or maybe opened up more people to these ideas. And as much as y'all who are here can be, lights on the path for others who may come behind you and be interested, I would love to support you. And I'm just really grateful for everything you do because I have seen the difference it makes in students. That's what inspired me to make this my full-time job. And I pulled a golden ticket getting one. And so do it.
That's awesome. We do have one last question for you, completely not related to what we're talking about, but the instrument behind you.
Oh, which I wish I could play better than I did. This was my COVID hobby. It's a 3-string mountain dulcimer, which I'm not very good at. I will not demonstrate, but it was my fun little learning experiment during COVID.
That's awesome. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for telling us about your dulcimer, and that I love dulcimers. So thank you. And I'm sure I will be contacting you too again. So with questions.
Great.
So.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you. All right. And with that, we are going to continue. I do have some work for you to do as well based on that. But we're just going to kind of go over some quick concepts here, and then we'll get started again. And why is that doing that? Can you see a screen that says structuring a lesson for outdoor learning? You can. All right, great. Thank you. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about structuring a lesson for outdoor learning. And we talked a little bit last week about logistics, and Laura talked about some of the classroom management as well. We're going to keep talking about classroom management over the next several weeks, so that'll be integrated into each of the trainings that we do. But this week, let's dive a little deeper into how you might transition from the classroom to the outside and then back to the classroom again. So before going outside, you want to think about these things. You're going to define the purpose of going outdoors. So tell your students why you're going outdoors, and Laura mentioned this as well as she was presenting. And you want to clearly define that purpose and have students, make sure that students know what to expect when they're outside, what they need to complete, what work they need to do, make sure that they know that before they go outside. And you want to make sure that you're connecting the outside learning to what you're learning in the inside, so that they see that, as Laura mentioned, that the outdoor is a classroom. It might have been a recess yard before, but it is actually a learning space. So making sure that you're connecting that outside learning to that inside learning. And then the outdoors, when you're outside, you want to model what you want your students to do. So if it's a science lesson, you want to model collection. If it's a writing lesson, you want to model how they might be writing, where they might be writing, what they might be doing. If it's a history lesson, I'm just thinking of reenactments. That's come up a lot in the past couple of weeks. How are they reenacting that history event? You're going to make sure that you're checking in with your students. So let them go off, let them explore, let them do the work that you've assigned them, but then bring them back before the end of that lesson, so that you can ask questions of the students, so that they can share what they've been working on. So you can, answer any of those misconceptions, or, any questions that they might have moving forward. So make sure that you're bringing them back mid-session. You're going to give your students time. And like Karen had said earlier, it might just be going out and practicing how to be outside. So as you build that stamina, give them an allotted time to go and explore and do that assignment that you've given them. And then reconvene. Last week we talked about those signals to get your students back. So this might be a signal for returning to the actual building. So make sure that you're reconvening. And then when you get back into the classroom, and hopefully that works, yes, you want to link that outdoor learning to that class content. Make sure that you are giving those students time to share and debrief the lesson. So how did it relate to what you learned in class? How did they do? What did they discover? What did they develop? What did they create? Having them share that work is that accountability that you're looking for, and helping you to meet some of those standards. So going from purpose to debrief, so making sure that they know that purpose, and checking and evaluating them when they come back inside. Okay. So we're going to do a little brainstorming right now together in the chat box. There's a list of activities, just random activities that you might be teaching inside. Just from each of the topic areas, you might have your own ideas as well. So this is just a random selection of lessons. So take a look at the lessons and think about your curriculum, and think about how you might transition some of those lessons to an outside setting. Okay. Don't focus on classroom management and logistics right now, but focus on what your standards are, what standards you need to meet. And these might not be something that you're teaching, but think about your curriculum. Okay, so I'd love to hear some initial thoughts, and you can put them in the chat, or you can come off mute. Okay, landscape sketching, nice. So go ahead and put them in the chat box, and then I'm going to call on somebody randomly, or somebody can come off mute.
I'll come off mute.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the I think habitats and landforms is super relatable to kids if you actually brief them, like give them a minute to think about all the things that are living in their schoolyard, and to talk about landforms and to introduce topography perhaps, and show them maps, and then go outside and go, how high is this and how would you draw that? And then
go ahead.
and then I would ease from that into the habitats. Like, what if you were to square off this area, what would be living in it and how would they interact with each other?
Nice. And I love that relation to topography, and how that's, we often look at those on maps and how it looks different on maps, and then they're able to see that in real person. So that's a nice connection. All right. I'm seeing lots of different ideas. Measuring the amount of green space versus gray space is on the school ground. Lucy, do you want to talk about that a little bit? That would be a math lesson, I'm thinking.
Yeah, that could be a math lesson, definitely. And then it could be incorporated into an environmental lesson as well. So like talking about watersheds and, you know, how water rolls off of green spaces, or rather than, you know, gray spaces rather than green spaces. And it can link into tons of different things. So you could start it as a math lesson or have math lesson just incorporated into it. That could be part of geography as well. So it can hit a lot of these.
I like how you're connecting that to several different subjects, because that could then meet those standards in several different ways. And how about percussion instruments? Making your own natural instruments. How would you do that, and how would that meet your standard, Katie? We might have lost Katie, so I'll come back to her, and that's fine. As a psychologist, Mary Lou, do you want to talk about SEL and how that would be meeting some of your standards?
Well, technically, I'm not in the school anymore, and I'm a part of the Maryland Naturalist program. So I was really thinking about it more or less about how I could interact with school programs and kind of get them into the idea that, you know, we can use nature to lower our blood pressure and, you know, help us, you know, mentally as well as physically. So I didn't have a very grandiose idea.
You know what? That's the nice thing, though. They don't have to be grandiose ideas. They don't have to be the next big thing. It's, you know, what you're teaching, what you're doing in your class. And I think that you related it, and that's what we need. That's the purpose. We need to relate to what we're doing. Let's see. Trying to find a different subject area here. One more for, let's see. Anybody else want to come off mute? There's so many ideas here. I like can't pick. Anyone can come off mute, and then we'll go on to the next activity. But if you'd like to share. Lords, I'm going to pick on you. Science and listening walk. Would you like to share about your standard for that?
Oh, well, I try to get them outside as, you know, when I can, but for science, whenever we begin sound, there's this cute little book called The Listening Walk, and we read it, and then we go on this super silent listening walk all around the school, and then of course then we go outside, and the students have like a clipboard and they're writing down the sounds or drawing whatever they love it. It's very it's the quietest there ever are in the hallway.
That's
so
really
when
funny.
you have a good purpose like that, everybody gets really engaged. It's just to get them.
And Karen's asking the name of the book, and what level is that? I'm thinking
like K1 and 2, K1 and 2. The Listening Walk. It's called The Listening Walk.
Oh, very nice. Very cool. All right. Well, there are so many ideas here. The chat is also being saved. So we will put this in as a resource as well, because as we are chatting, you are actually creating a resource list for everyone else too. All right, next is going to be our Padlet, and hopefully, there we go. Alana, if you want to go ahead and put the Padlet in the link. So we are going to go ahead, and you're going to actually, it's going to be all about you. So you're going to think about your lessons and your curriculum, and then your specific curriculum. So not the list before. Think about, you're going to do the same thing. Think about how you're going to transition one lesson, pick one lesson, a section of a lesson, just something small that you can actually do outside. Maybe, I know there's not that much time left with school, but maybe outside in the next week or so. And how would that meet your standard? Like, what standard do you need to meet? How would you take it outside? How would you transition it outside? And go ahead and see if you can go ahead and just start putting it on the Padlet. And I am going to show you. Can you see my Padlet here now if I change those screens? Yes, it's always good when that works. So to add, if you've not used a Padlet before, there's a little pink button down here at the bottom. And you're just gonna put your title. You can write something. If you want to add your name, you can. So I'm just gonna put example here and my subject. And then it just takes it and you can move it and you can just add. So think about your challenge. What's the challenge that you are taking learning outside? And we want to stay with, your lessons. So stick with your lesson planning. What are you thinking? How can you take that outside? But what challenge are you going to come up against in the next couple of weeks if you want to do it? Okay, I'm going to be quiet for a couple of minutes and just let you think. How's everyone doing? A couple more minutes, do you think? Karen, are you okay? I see a frustrated expression on your face. Just checking in. You're okay? Okay.
I was typing it, but I was typing on it disappeared, and everybody's thing came up. So I don't know where it went. Great.
Gotcha. Yeah, it looks like it keeps updating, so it's a little.
Oh well, I do not have to punctuate the end of that sentence, but
We're not checking grammar and spelling. It's okay. I'll give you about another minute here, and then we'll just go through some of these. All right. I'm going to pick out a few, and I'm noticing that we have about 30 minutes left, so we do want to do another activity. I'm just going to pick out a few. And if you are the person who I choose, then maybe you can talk a little bit more about it, or we can have an open discussion about it. One of them is the challenge is getting students out and back within 90 minutes with a meaningful lesson. That is a challenge, and that's that time constraint. Have you tried it before? What have you attempted? Have you attempted it yet? If you want to come off mute, and then we can have an open discussion about that, because that's one of those big things is how do you, even the administration is probably asking, 90 minutes, you want to do this, this, and this. How are you meeting that standard? Flipped outdoor classroom, definitely. Thanks, Ms. Cook, for giving a suggestion for that. Has anyone else attempted that yet? Like 90 minutes and you ran out of time, or you're afraid to do it because you don't have enough time?
Before COVID, I did it a lot at our elementary school, but we're lucky because the garden classroom I've designed has several different habitats in it that we can access, but then we also have a local stream that feeds into Rock Creek that is just over the field. So I will tromp down there with kids and go in the stream. And we have gotten over involved and over excited about what we were doing and looked at watches and gone, oops, we need to run back. So, I mean, I usually have an alarm on because I get overexcited as well and get immersed in what we're doing. So I usually have an alarm to send me back. But to be honest, I mean, I've been lucky here because our administration is really open and all of our staff is really, easygoing. So when I have been late to bring a class back for PE or whatever, it's not been a huge issue, but it is something to consider. And I tend to map those things out before I take the kids. Like I'll walk to the stream, do most of the things we're going to do there, do the wrap up, and then walk back and make sure I have that time before I take them out. I kind of take myself on the field trip to just make sure the logistic part works out.
That's a good suggestion. And Ms. Cook, I didn't actually get to your flipped classroom. Have you tried that before? Are you able to talk about that?
Just problem solving.
Yeah,
Some things you might, like exit tickets and things, you might have to save for homework. We can't get everything in.
Nice, I like that. The exit ticket, is that homework component, or anything that might be done in the classroom. Might be that, an entrance ticket for the next day or the next class, or the exit ticket for homework. I like that. All right, I'm going to do one more here, and then we're going to move on. And I'm noticing the microscopic. So there's a couple questions here about microscopic in the chat, and then microscopic connections in the Padlet. Would anyone like getting the connection from deep classroom to outside, especially when discussing microscopic phenomena outside? Anyone want to come off mute? Whoever put that up there, and talk about that, and maybe we can do some brainstorming there.
So when I've taken my students outside, there is a small, I guess it's a sediment pond, but it's filled with all kinds of organisms. And I've had them go in trying not to fall in. And I got to remember too, I teach in high school. So I get them to take samples and bring them back into the classroom. Now, I haven't done this in several years because of COVID, but there's also something that I haven't tried yet. I purchased 50 of them. They're called fold scopes. And I haven't tried it yet, but evidently you can use they're like little portable individual microscopes that you can take outside and utilize so that you could actually see, I don't know, maybe you could see eggs on the underside of a leaf or something like that. So there's a possibility of actually incorporating, not really microbiology, but microscopic, portions of the ecology into an outside lesson, because I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot.
I like that. If you have that resource, if you can share that with everyone, that might be a good idea.
Yeah, if I can find,
Oh, sorry.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Yep. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut. I didn't want to cut the other person off. Our biology teacher uses something called blips and dibble. I don't personally use the tools, but they allow you to take samples. They have like collection valves that come with it, but students can use their cell phones and zoom into it. It has just like an attachment that their cell phone sit on top of. So you don't need kind of crazy advanced equipment. The add-on that their phone sits on top of is like smaller than their hand. So that might be an option. And it goes to the microscopic level. They were using them this year to look at bacteria inside of water.
Right.
I'm looking for the email now, but I can at least drop the names for those who need that.
And I like the suggestion too in there of combining classes. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? And I think that's I always say your name wrong. Sean.
It's misspelled from birth. Don't worry.
You know, and I apologize to anyone that I say your name wrong.
Fine.
Please correct me.
No, it's fine. Shan's fine by me. Yeah, I mean, the fact that you're going out and exploring already, that really is kind of PE. And so if we could, bring classes together, and I don't know how to cover the other kids, whether you can bring at least 2 teachers with you or bring all 3. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit of a mess if you bring too many people outdoors at once, but why not bring all of those classes together and make a day of it? Just say, hey, we're going to discover everything. We're going to go from art to PE to biology to science. I mean, it's all right there.
I like that suggestion, and that's definitely part of that logistics that we were talking about last week. Is working with other teachers within your school. What logistics would count. How much space do you have? How many teachers do you have? How many students do you have? So I like that, thinking about it as a full, as just a well-rounded day of different subjects, seeing how everything connects together. And all the subjects are not, this is math, this is, everything in our world connects, and it's a nice way to do that.
I love that way of you talking about that. And I think it gives an opportunity for the kids to see how they're put together, because to teach these subjects as if they exist in the world separately is just wrong. It is misleading and wrong in every sense of the word. And so I think this would be a way that you can bring all of those things together and see how they interact.
Definitely. So it's something to keep in thinking about as we're trying to figure out how to do this on a full scale or small scale, medium scale, whatever level you're trying to do, thinking about it. With that, I don't want to cut anyone off, but we'll have this Padlet available. And then we'll go from there. And I'm thinking that the Padlet is probably, did anybody get knocked out of the Padlet too? Or no? Okay, good. So we're still trying different tech things. So, all right. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. And this is a point in a training where we would actually go outside. I obviously can't take you outside, so we're going to do a Google Earth. And hopefully you can see that. Are you able to see that? Yay. All right, so we're going to take a walk and into an outside space. It's Francis Scott Key Elementary Middle School in Baltimore. So we're going to take a walk, and while we're taking that walk, I want you to answer some questions for me, just mentally, in the back of your head. Where would you, if we were to create a map of the place that we're walking in, what would you need to put on that map? Okay, what's the difference between the human-made structures and the natural features? Like, why would you put that on a map? And why would you use a map? And what's the purpose of a map? Okay. So as we're taking that walk, you're going to think about those. So why are you, who's using it? Why are you creating a map? What's the difference between the different elements on the map, human and natural? And what do you want your purpose of the map to be? Okay, so when we get outside, I'm going to ask you to draw a map. So we're going to take a walk. And again, it's Google Earth, so hopefully you'll be able to do this. And then you're going to share your map and you're going to talk about it. I'm just going to call in a few people. But if you would like to share your map virtually, I will put a Google slideshow in and you can upload a picture of your map so that you can share it as well with all in the resources. All right, so are you ready to take a walk? If you are, give me a thumbs up, a smiley face, a emoticon, anything. Are you ready to take our walk? Are you ready to go outside? All right. Looks like we are. I'm getting some people who are ready. They are ready to go outside. All right, so let's try this. We are going to start on the aerial view. So pretend like you're a fly on the wall. Obviously, you wouldn't do this, but you are flying into Francis Scott Key Elementary. This is what it looks like from above. Okay. There's a dog park over here. There's the school here. There's some railroad tracks on the edge and some baseball fields. Okay. Then we're going to go into the street view. So we've exited the school from the front. Take a look around. And by the way, you can do this with your students too. I was just afraid Google Earth would not work for me virtually with the internet access. So take a look around. Pretend you're walking around this area. Notice the human-made and the natural features. You've expanded past the further sidewalk. And this is the neighborhood to your left. This is a different part of the season. We have not changed from spring to fall, but it is there. There are some different features here in the courtyard. Okay. All right. Actually, you don't need to ask me questions. I just went past that. Alana, if you can there is a separate link in the slide deck that you can share with everyone as they're drawing their map. They can take that walk again.
Got it.
So if you want to, and I'm going to go back up here and go through the map again as go through the walking. What I want you to do is just sketch out a map. How might you use this in a geography lesson? And of course, this is very short. You would spend a lot more time with your students talking about features and landforms and things like that. So I'm going to share my screen again, and Alana is actually sharing a separate Google Earth document with you that you can look at as well as you're drawing your map. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to create a map for whatever purpose you want to create it for. And then we'll share in about 5 minutes. So I'm just going to kind of keep clicking through these if you aren't able to access the second PowerPoint. Are there any questions about the map or any part of the assignment?
So does the map have to be for a history lesson or anything?
That is up to you.
Okay.
That is up to you. It's purposely open-ended because we have a couple different grade levels represented in focus areas. Keep going to that one slide. And I'm actually thinking of a history lesson with this just because I know the neighborhood and a map for that. But yeah, that's a great suggestion too. Can be for anything though. Any other questions?
Mary, there's a question in the chat.
Okay, let's see. How do I add a slide? To the Google Earth. Let's see, make sure, Alana, can you make sure that everyone has access to edit that?
Yep.
And then you would go under slide, the slide menu, Linda, and add new slide. Or you can right click as well. I'm going to give you 1 more minute and then we're going to share. I'm going to pull up the slide deck as well. Oh, Linda, if you're on your phone, it might be a little bit more difficult to add the slide from there. It is not you, it is Google Slides. All right. Would anybody like to share just their, hold up their map drawing and explain? Jan, do you want to go ahead and talk about what you, since you were, I can see you, talk about your map? Who's it for? Why did you create it? What's the purpose? That kind of thing.
I just seem to zero in on the man-made features, but then maybe it's hard to see, but I did add in the trees. And I guess my purpose would be to see how the students perceive that they fit into the place that they're at that time, you know, spatially. How do they, like, they know they come in the front drive, but do they know where that is in relationship to everything else?
Right, so directional evaluation even. Nice. And Sean, you said that's great, Jan. I love that. Thank you. And then Sean, you said that the Zoom feature of coming from outer space. Yes, it is the second largest point of entry for immigrants. So going back to that history lesson, you know, maybe talk, you know, going from what it looks like now to even draw your map now, and let's go back into the classroom and look at what it looked like in the 1900s. So that is, yeah, it was a big immigration area at that time. And the history in that area is quite interesting. So you can definitely relate it to that. Anyone else want to share their map? Anyone brave enough to share that map or anything that they thought about?
I instead of Google Earth, I've used Google Maps before.
Nice. Yes. Yeah.
So we did the schoolyard report card, and we walked around and we collected pictures and things. So there's 3 layers.
Nice. I love that. Cool. That's very cool. I like that. I didn't even think about using Google Maps. So thank you for sharing that. Nice.
So I think we have scientific processes. We have, I think, environmental, let me see, solutions. The county spent a lot of money with making rain gardens for us for our stormwater runoff. And so basically I made this because, as I stated before, we can't always go outside. So I will always have this.
Yeah, nice. And it's what actually Laura was talking about is bringing that outdoors inside. So even just using those outdoor elements inside, and that could be part of that. I know it's not completely bringing nature in, but it's part of that. It could be related to that. Anyone else want to share before we finish out our training today? And if you would like to add to the deck, you can do that as well. Any other brave volunteers? I know it's almost 5 and you're like, it is meal time, dinner time, right? Let me see a couple new messages here. Google My Maps. Yeah, thank you, Victoria. Go ahead, and somebody else was talking, so go ahead.
Yeah. So with my younger students, I have pre-K, kindergarten combined class, and we do a lot with maps. And one way we start is using a map that's already made or that teachers made, and then using it for scavenger hunts and treasure hunts and hunts for trees and things like that. So as a way to like introduce the younger students to using maps first and becoming familiar with them before they start making their own. And when they start making their own, we pick like a very small area, very familiar, favorite part of the playground or something like that, for them to start making their own. And we'll start with like doing 3D models collaboratively. And then so sort of a progression to getting into the ability to make their own maps. But when you do treasure hunts or scavenger hunts, it's very highly motivating for the little ones to want to learn how to use a map.
Definitely. And that relates directly to your standards, what you have to teach, and how you teach it differently, perhaps. Yeah. All right. Well, this was very informative today. I hopefully for all of you, hopefully you're seeing some ways to look at your standards, look at the goals and objectives that you need to meet, and just taking that lesson outside and taking a small chunk of it. This map lesson, not as exciting as actually going outside, was actually taken from a larger unit, a 4th grade unit on mapping and geography. So this was just a tiny, tiny section of it. And had we been in person, we would have walked outside, we would have walked through that area, and then we would have done the mapping ourselves. So think about just taking a small bit of that lesson or that curriculum or that unit that you are teaching. With that, I'm going to ask you if you have any questions, concerns, lingering thoughts, I'm gonna let you know that we have 3 more of these, and if you know of anyone who would be interested, I'm gonna put the 3 more trainings if they can register, and we can send them that link. But share the link too with anyone that you think might be interested in joining as well. But with that, we do actually, if there are no lingering questions, I have one more poll. So Alana, if you can launch the poll, I want to see if our thoughts have changed.
The poll has been launched.
All right, so go ahead and answer those same questions, and let's see if we have changed our opinions in any way over the last hour and a half. And Alana, how are we doing?
We have 80% in, so take a couple more minutes. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end polling now.
And then if you can read the results, let's see if we change from the 90-10.
So we actually have 100% at confident that they can meet the standards and take
What? Oh my gosh. We need like cheering, you know, emoticons, happy faces, jumping up and down. You can do a headstand if you are able to or willing or want to. That is awesome. And that just makes my day. And with that, we're going to be on for a couple more minutes. If you have any lingering questions, please stay on. We'll be here to answer questions. Thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you'll join us next week or watch the recordings if you aren't. If you think of questions, please email us and look for a certificate for both weeks if you're here last week and this week in the coming week. So yes, we will put that. Alana, if you want to go ahead and put the attendance sheet in the chat one more time for anyone who missed it, that would be super awesome. Go enjoy your evenings, get outside for real. Maybe make your own map and add it to add it to the PowerPoint deck for us, or the Google Slides deck. All right, good night everyone, and take care. We'll see you next week, hopefully. Bye-bye. All right. Awesome. Thank you all for joining us. And Drew, if you want to stay on too, you can for a couple minutes. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely, Jan.
I don't think I did the attendance for the first day. Okay. I joined in late.
I can add you to it. I will make sure that you are there. And if you did the attendance for this week?
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah. I will send you a sheet and then, or a sheet. It's been a long day too. I'll send you a certificate for last week too. And I'll just grab your email from this week's.
Okay. And I was looking at the Google My Maps.
Mm-hmm.
Can you save maps in that?
Yes, actually. So Google Earth allows you to create a project, and you can, like, it says add project, and you can pick locations and use it like as a slideshow or an assignment for your students.
So this Google My Maps is in Google Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you could do Google Maps as well. So those are two different tools. And then you can, I took screenshots because every time I've tried to use Google Earth during a presentation, it just blows up my computer. So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
Mary, I have a quick question. This is Linda McDonough. So I wasn't unable to join you in last week's class, but I did watch the recording. I don't know if that makes a difference or not.
It does.
Okay. But I don't have any way to prove that I watched the recording.
Why don't you send me an email and give me 2 points that you learned?
Okay, I'll be glad to do that. Sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to put my email in the chat box. And just tell me anything that you learned or anything that you wanted to share from any of the discussions or the Jamboard or anything like that.
Okay.
You know, 2 or 3 points, and then I'll send you that certificate, and then I'll have your email, and that will be great. Yeah.
I'll do that first thing tomorrow morning when I get back to my school computer.
Awesome. Cool.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Linda.
you. Bye.
Marcia, let's see, you didn't complete the attendance. Could you please add me? Yes. So Marcia, can you send me an email as well? Oh wait, did you complete this week's attendance? I'm assuming yes. And then I will add you to last week's. Yes, Marcia, Brent.
I just completed this week's.
Okay.
I didn't do last week's.
All right, you are on my list. Good thing that I'm behind, right?
Yeah, thank you.
I'll send it to you this week.
All righty, thanks.
You're welcome.
Have a good week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Oh, Mary, I wrote down one other person's name actually to send attendance to for last week.
Okay, who was it?
Mrs. Staton.
Yes. Yeah, she was here
Okay.
last week. Yeah, I will
Perfect.
add
Okay.
her.
She said that she might have filled it out, but is not sure.
Okay. All right. I got my 3. Add them to my list here in hot pink so I can see it. Okay. Cool. Nice. Molly, Jane, any other questions? Jane, how about you? You still there? All right. I am going to